The role of education, according to UNESCO, should be the means to empower children and adults alike to become active participants in the transformation of their societies. Learning should also focus on the values, attitudes and behaviours which enable individuals to learn to live together in a world characterised by diversity and pluralism. I would propose that our information-based economy is perhaps the most challenging context for which to prepare our students. Historically, agricultural and industrial-based economies had educators preparing students for largely fixed and clearly defined roles. Business leaders today often express concerns over employees lacking particular competencies that they say are important in the workplace. Given the new context of the workplace being where problems are often ill-defined, where people must work together in teams often multidisciplinary, educators need to prepare students for jobs that haven't even been invented yet. How then do educators prepare students for the unknown? According to Brian McGaw, the new Australian syllabus pays serious attention to the 21st century skills, but does not use this specific wording because these skills are in fact not unique to the 21st century. Skills like communication, personal and social skills have always been important. The biggest thing for educators to be mindful of is the technology-rich environment in which our students are embedded. It means how these skills are applied are quite unique. Especially a world in which UNESCO states is hugely diverse and pluralistic. The Australian curriculum, through the use of the general capabilities, plays a significant role in realising the goals set out in the Melbourne Declaration, which identifies essential skills for 21st century learning. The general capabilities encompass the knowledge, skills, behaviours and dispositions that, together with curriculum content in each learning area, will assist students to live and work successfully in our society. The general capabilities within the Australian curriculum readily fit into the general classification of 21st century skills as defined in the Assessment and Teaching of 21st Century Skills, which I'll refer to as the ATC 21S program. These are headed by ways of thinking, ways of working, tools for working and living in the world. The beauty and appeal for schools that I spoke with about the program was because the model is based on collaborative problem solving, it actually encompasses many of the 21st century skills. Why this model was also particularly appealing to schools was that teachers and leaders have had so much dialogue around 21st century skills. They are aware of the dire implications for students if we don't equip them to work successfully in the 21st century. There's a great deal of willingness and buy-in for teachers to do this, but a distinct deficit in understanding of how to do this. New South Wales has been a rapid succession of new syllabuses, which has meant that the professional learning has actually been really focused on the content, delivery of content, and very little has been focused on general capabilities, particularly in the two schools I worked with. Let's now look at the process of introducing this into a number of schools. The main school I was working with is already a highly committed school, highly committed to future-focused pedagogies, and have been employing these for a number of years. This commitment is even reflected in the school plan. They have open classrooms, sole project-based learning passion projects already established. The school is from a highly disadvantaged area, and the school sees it as their moral obligation to prepare their students for life and work in the 21st century. Recently, students from their Year 6 class came third in an international future problem-solving competition in America, where they designed a preparation to school package for incoming kinder students that may not have had preschooling or access to books or writing materials. Another school I worked with are really only starting their journey towards future-focused learning. I invited 2 of their staff members to be part of the process and evaluate whether this may support them in their own projects. I started with writing a proposal for the school outlining the research and theory behind the model. The initial reaction was that of great excitement, that this was exactly what the school was looking for. They were particularly excited about the generation of the rocket reports. The school were really keen and wanted to implement the assessment pretty much the next day. I recommended that we spend some time unpacking the module so they could gain a deeper understanding of the project. The school executive agreed on a half-day release of staff. We went through the modules 1, 2 and 4, and teachers from the other school joined us for the professional learning. During this meeting, we identified the current Year 4 to take part in the assessment. We're all really quite surprised at how resilient and persistent the students were in completing the task. A week later, we met with the principal, classroom teachers and staff from the second school. In a team, we looked at the class reports. The principal commented that he was particularly excited as this was the first piece of concrete data that they had ever had, and that it affirms that what they are doing is working overall, particularly in the social skills. What was highlighted in the discussion, however, was although the reports were overall strong, the group admitted the students had largely got in themselves, almost by accident, not through explicit teaching. They discussed how the skills progression provided by the project now gave teachers the language and skills to explicitly teach these to their students. To help frame the discussion about the relevance of the reports in terms of our specific context, we use Patrick Griffin's 5-step approach to developmental assessment, learning and teaching. As a group, they reflected on the model in terms of what had been happening at the school and determined they had really been operating from the generalised stage and basing this on intuition rather than evidence. They believed that this model and tool now gave them the missing link of measure. The principal then recreated this model in terms of now being cyclical and showed how the tool had now shown us where our tipping point was and where to next. We looked more closely at the individual student reports. Some discussion that was worth noting was one student had ranked particularly high on the social skills progression. This child has been seen as having significant behaviour problems with quite antisocial behaviour, yet he outranked his peers in this area. Because of his behaviour, this child was often directed not to work with students, with a partner. The group acknowledged this child had quite advanced social skills compared to his peers, and he could be used as a mentor with less capable students. They talked about pairing him up with a partner in a passion project, yet I felt I needed to direct the discussion towards these results were based on collaborative problem solving, and that by simply having him work in a group, it's a very different scenario. In fact, by doing this, we could be setting the child up and his partner for failure, I should say. This prompted the discussion that only when a task requires true collaboration does the full set of social skills come to the fore. Reflecting on the group results, future planning would involve planning more collaborative problem-solving tasks. The level and nature of intervention in the interim was actually quite simple. Teachers wanted to use the social and cognitive skills progression to create kids speak markers or I can statements. For example, I can ask my partner more questions when solving a problem. The team felt this was an important part of the process due to the school being a visible learning school and a focus on students becoming self-regulating. The second intervention would be teachers share individual student reports with the students themselves using the kids speak markers in the identified zone of proximal development for each student. The student would then choose 1 to 2 markers that they would be working towards in their upcoming passion projects. They would be encouraged to use the language of the continuums to articulate their goals and seek teacher and peer feedback on these goals. The medium-term intervention is to modify a scope and sequence the school had already begun, which tracks the opportunities and programs students access which target 21st century skills from kinder to year 6 and modify this to reflect the specific skills from the ATS C21 model of skills progression. In conclusion, School 1 has used the assessment data from the project to personalise learning of social and cognitive skills for their student. Embed the skills required for collaborative problem solving with a school scope and sequence. Use the data to modify and strengthen 21st century pedagogy already in place at the school, and use the data from the project to measure the impact of their interventions. In conclusion, School 2 used the tool to direct professional learning of teachers on 21st century skills and how they can be measured. Use the project to collect baseline data which will direct the teaching and learning and explicit teaching of social and cognitive skills. Use the data to also measure the impact of their interventions and to personalise learning for their students.